Welcome back. It is time for the Not Zone from Sportsnaut. Hope you are all doing well. Welcome back to the show. We talk all things NFL. I'm Scott Branson, your host, along with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Dyrud. He is the founder of the LA Football Network, part of Sportsnaut's family here. And we appreciate you guys being with us. Do us a favor, if you don't already subscribe to the YouTube channel, please do so. Even if you're watching us on MSN or you're watching us on X.com, wherever you're watching us, just go over to YouTube. We got so much stuff there. Great stuff, whether you're a fight fan, whether you're a football fan, a baseball fan, we got you all covered. So come on over to the Sportsnaut YouTube page. Also, give us a thumbs up, hit that notifications bell so you know when we have a new video. And we are going to go through some fun stuff today. Ryan, you ready to play NFL GM? We're going to do a little bit, just a little bit. We're not going to do a whole first round, but we're going to do the top 10. And if we really feel good about it, maybe we'll go to 15. Of the first round. We're going to do a mock draft. And how you feeling, man? You ready to kind of put on your GM hat?
Yeah, just put the crown on, the GM crown. Got that. But yeah, can't wait, baby. Looking forward to it. It was a rainy weekend in LA. The sun is out. It's shining beautifully. Excited to talk draft. Just had a draft conversation earlier today with Trevor Sikkema, who's a lead analyst for PFF. So I'm in. The juices are already flowing. Ready to get into it. And we got you rocking, what is that, a KC Royals hat today?
No, this is a Kansas City Athletics hat.
Ooh.
So this is prior to them moving to Oakland. Of course, they're moving again to Las Vegas. And they've started in Philadelphia. And we actually have a video up on the Sportsnaut YouTube site about the history of the A's name. So you can go check that out. But anyway, yeah, so I'm a baseball guy. You know, I'm a Padre fan because I'm from San Diego. But I love baseball tradition stuff. So and I lived in Kansas City for a while, and I grew up actually very young kid as a Royal fan, really small, but then moved to San Diego, became a Padre fan, and I've been in pain ever since. But so I have this hat, I have old White Sox hat, you name it. It's kind of stuff like I'm going to pull off my set here behind me. You can kind of see, I have like my 1917 White Sox.
Yeah. Love that.
Stein, 2 years before they threw the World Series. Yep. But so yeah, all kinds of fun stuff. So I love baseball. So that's why I'm wearing that.
Well, if you love traditions in baseball, one of the greatest traditions is by week 2 of the baseball season, the Colorado Rockies are already out of the playoff race. So my fandom of you've had a painful existence as a Padre fan. The Rockies maybe they've been worse. They haven't been around quite as long, since '93. We do have one World Series appearance, 07, Rocktober, as it was deemed in October of 2007, but since then and before then,
they lost to the White Sox. Was it the White Sox they lost to, or was it the Marlins?
Red Sox.
Oh, Red Sox 07. Yeah, I got.
So it was a beautiful. I know we're gonna get to the draft, so don't worry. But it was a beautiful season because I was a senior in high school.
Oh.
So it was really getting into. I mean, I've been in sports my whole life, but I had like freedom to like go and do and see things, and so they had to win basically all of their games just to make the playoffs. So they win 22 out of their final 23 games to make the playoffs. Only losing one game.
It's insane.
Out of 23. Make the playoffs.
I remember that.
They sweep the Phillies in the first round. They sweep the Diamondbacks in the second round. So it's like, holy crap, is this going to happen? And then they get swept by the Red Sox in the World Series. But it was fun. The famous, speaking of pain, it was the Matt Holliday. Did he slide safe in the play-in game against the Padres, against the great Trevor Hoffman? So my parents and a lot of friends were at that game at Coors Field. It was
painful.
A fun season.
Painful for me that day. Yeah. But I'll tell you, that's the thing. You go back and again, the Padres are 54 years old. And they've only been to the 2 World Series. Now, I saw both of them, so I was very fortunate of that. In 84, when I was in 8th grade, that's how old I am. 84, I was in 8th grade, and so I was there when they were playing the Cubs. My family's from Chicago originally, so my dad grew up a Cubs fan. He gave up on the Cubs after I was born because that's the year they lost to the Mets, the Miracle Mets. And so he was a Padre fan too after living in San Diego for so long. So then we play the Cubs. It's a family battle, right? People wouldn't talk to us back in Chicago because we're the and then they were up 2-0 in the National League Championship Series. Of course, it was 5 games then. It wasn't 7. So it was 2-0 and they were coming back to San Diego. And of course the Padres swept them in San Diego. And I was there in game 5 when Steve Garvey hit his home run against Lee Smith. So one of my favorite moments of my life. So it was good times. But you mentioned PFF. We're going to use PFF to do our mock draft. PFF, which is here in Cincinnati, by the way, where I live now. And you talked about your rain out there. We've also had rain. Last night we had 70-mile-an-hour winds, lightning, thunder. We're under a tornado watch as we talk to you today.
Wow.
So, but the good news is my studio is in the bottom floor of the house. So if anything happens, I'm all right here. I just got to call the kids down and the wife down and say, all right, let's hang out down here.
Hunker down.
Yes, hunker down. But that's the way it is. And it's been a weird El Nino, man. El Nino for you guys, obviously huge wet winter on the West Coast. And then it spreads out all over the country. So interesting stuff. But we're going to talk about the storm coming in Detroit here later this month, which is the NFL draft. So what we're going to do here, Ryan, is we're going to go through and we will put the screen up here. So let me put this on up here so people can see it and you can see us there on the side. I'm going to see if there's a better format for them. No, that hides us. We'll figure it out here. This is going to be too narrow. Maybe not. Let me do this. Okay. So we got it all figured out. Oops. No, that was wrong. I'm going back here. There we go. All right. So, and it screwed up my settings. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you this as we go along. So you can watch us as we do this draft because the NFL draft coming up again later this month. And it's going to be, I think, pretty interesting how this all goes. So we're going to go through the top 10 picks and Ryan and I will discuss before we select and start this. And I got to go to all here so that we do all the teams. Is we'll go through and we'll talk a little bit about this pick. And I mean, we talked about last week, Ryan, we talked about Caleb Williams and the fact that Caleb Williams is going to be the first pick in the draft. Okay.
Yep.
And nothing has changed my mind about that. I've not seen anything, any reports, anybody of credit with good credibility that's telling us that it's not going to happen. Right. So we're going to do that. And as we do this, watch them pop up somebody else. They'll pop up Marvin Harrison Jr. No, I'm just kidding. So we know that's going to happen. So we talk about this first pick, Ryan, before we get to it, and the fact that Caleb Williams is there. And of course, the Caleb Williams stuff we were talking about last week was the pink fingernail polish and all that kind of jazz. And it was so funny because it didn't bother me. Yeah, not my cup of tea, but it's him. That's not me. Mm-hmm. And so many people made the great analogy of Dennis Rodman, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas like people in Chicago are going to like him and blah, blah. It's like, wait a minute, they love Dennis Rodman, and Dennis Rodman was a lot more flamboyant and crazy in some ways with what he did in Chicago. So I think Caleb Williams, and I think you look at what the Bears have done, I think the Bears are in a position to where they need to make a big jump. So they're going to count on Caleb Williams to come in and play right away.
Yeah. No, yeah, and it's the right choice. And yeah, it was funny. Who knows? Like nowadays, you can change things so quick. And again, we talked about last week. I could care less. I think it was way overblown. I thought Good Morning Football did a great piece kind of on it. Just like, what are we even doing here? Like, why are we trying to tear this kid down? But the next day, he was at USC practice, just hanging out, and he was with Gavin Morris, who's one of like the assistant athletic directors there. And on camera and, showed his fingers. They weren't painted. Like, obviously you can remove them if that was the case, but, weren't painted. His phone was like a very like light shade of pink or like the sunlight. It wasn't even like a full on pink phone case. And he was like, yeah, my lips are pink. Like, it was just, it's funny how he's kind of leaning into it of just like having fun and like, whatever. Like if people are going to hate me, so be it. I'm going to be the first overall pick because I'm the best player in the draft. I'm the best quarterback in the draft. And I'm going to come in and start day one and hopefully turn this Bears franchise around.
Well, and the thing is, I haven't seen Bears fans. Now, Bears fans, because of what they've been through, can be very salty, okay? Bears fans, no offense to you. I understand why. And I've not seen anybody really go nuts except be excited about Caleb Williams joining the team. I think this is a jealousy issue. You might think it's weird that he's painting his fingernails. Fine, okay, cool, whatever. But I think it's just everybody else would like Caleb Williams. Everybody else would like to have him as their future quarterback. And because they're not, they're pissed off, and so they're going to make fun of his fingernails.
When I think Bears fans realize that most recently they traded up to take Mitch Trubisky, and now they sit with the Carolina Panthers pick and get a generational type quarterback that has the ability to be great. So I think they realized, beggars can't be choosers. Let's not complain here about dumb things because this guy can come in and change our franchise.
Yes, and he has his detractors. You've seen some, I think, pretty high profile commentators talk about how they feel like he's not going to do it. We've seen it. I think when you were at the Super Bowl, who was it that was talking about it? It was Merrill Hodge was talking about he didn't think that he was going to translate well to the pro game. So not everybody's a fan, but that's to be expected. I mean, every player has its detractors. Every player has strengths and weaknesses. And going from the college to the pro level, you're obviously going to have to make that adjustment. But I do think that Caleb Williams is going to be out. So, all right, so let's get to this, Ryan. So we're going to enter the draft here. You guys are all along with us. Leave comments down below, by the way. Tell us what you think of this as we go through, and let me put this up on the screen bigger so they can not see our mugs and instead see the draft a little more. So we enter here. Let's see. Boom and boom. Okay. So now here's what we go. We have
we have trade offers already.
We already have a trade offer. So Chicago, Washington wants to move up a spot.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Shocking.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they want to draft the offensive lineman. No, they want to draft Caleb Williams. So force this trade. We're not going to do a trade because I just don't see Chicago doing it, right? And where am I doing? Where am I going here?
So if you don't want to do the trade, just hit start draft.
Just hit start draft. So we're saying start draft, and of course, any disagreement with me on Caleb Williams? No. Right?
Nope. He's going one. The only change would be if the Bears take that trade and it's Washington drafting first. But Williams
Correct. But for the purposes of this, as you can see, we're going here. So we have Caleb Williams going 1, of course, to the Chicago Bears. And then we will get, let's see. Okay. So now we have Washington. Now, Washington is going to get a quarterback as well. This has been pretty well established. The question is, what quarterback do they choose, right?
Sorry,
go ahead.
Keep going.
No, I was going to say, you have Drake May, Jayden Daniels, right? Those are the two of the top 3, of course, with Caleb Williams already gone. And a lot of folks are saying it's Jayden Daniels. They're saying they're in love with Jayden Daniels, but you just don't know if that's the truth or not. You know, a lot of teams will put out things and they'll say, hey, whatever. But I do think that's who they would take. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with you, Scott. I think all through the season, it was kind of like a foregone conclusion. Drake May was the number 2 quarterback. And some people may still feel that way. Jayden Daniels obviously won the Heisman, very different style of quarterback. But I think when you look at, and not even going with the rumors, just looking at the brass in Washington right now, you know, with Dan Quinn as the head coach, but more specifically with Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator, you look at the quarterbacks Cliff Kingsbury has coached. You can go back to Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. You can look at Kyler Murray, who he was there to draft at Arizona. And then obviously he was with USC as a quote unquote offensive analyst last year, but obviously had a good relationship with Caleb Williams, which we'll see if they do try to make a push to trade up. But if not, I think Jayden Daniels really fits that mold of kind of the style of quarterback, the style of offense that he wants to run, that I think Jayden Daniels can do much better than Drake May or JJ McCarthy. And there's the last little wrinkle. Obviously, they weren't necessarily associated, but Jayden Daniels, before transferring to LSU, was at Arizona State, while Cliff Kingsbury was at the Arizona Cardinals. So there may be some layover there where I'm sure they met. You know, a lot of pro and college teams have some layover a little bit. So to me, it's Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And so we're going to do that. I think that this is a place, and you guys all know who watch the show, that I also cover the Raiders, and his relationship with Antonio Pierce, the head coach there, is a big one. I think the Raiders will try and are probably trying. There's just no way I think Washington can pass up a quarterback, Jayden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner, has so much upside. Does he have some work to do? Of course he does, especially moving into the pro game. But he is the kind of guy, him and Caleb Williams both are, I think, guys that you can count on. And listen, you don't know if a guy's going to work out, even if he's great coming out of college, but you can't pass it up in this draft. Looking at next year's draft, you have a couple quarterbacks nowhere near the same class. And Washington needs to they have all new ownership, all new coaching staff. They need a face to the franchise, I think. And to me, a new, young, fresh face to the franchise. And I think Jayden Daniels is the guy to do that. Now, that's not to be said that the next quarterback, of course, we have New England. And I think this is a pick, Ryan, that I've talked a lot about on my Raiders show. For Raider fans and for Giants fans and for Broncos fans and Vikings fans. To me, this was the only possibility of trading up to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks was this spot, right? and we've heard a lot about the Patriots all in on a quarterback. Now, that could be true, but it also could be they're just trying to drive the value up, right?
Mhm.
I still think there could be a trade here. I don't think there will be. I'm going to say I don't think so right now, but I do believe that it's a possibility. Right now, in our mock draft here on PFF, we have the Chargers, team you cover down in Los Angeles. We have the Chargers offering
What?
a trade. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Offering a trade with the Patriots, offering. Well, you could select, you could try to,
Yeah.
but we're not going to do that. We're just having fun. I'm
I
going
would
back
be
to that.
absolutely floored and shocked if the Chargers trade up from 5 to 3.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when they already have their quarterback. Now they could use a wide receiver and some other needs, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But I think here too, there to me, if it was Bill Belichick, I think they're trading out of the pick. But even in the post Brady era, but I think here too, I think Drake May goes. I think it's 1, 2, 3 quarterbacks. Could they go wide receiver? How would you go wide receiver when you don't have your quarterback yet? Doesn't make a lot of sense. Could they go offensive line with Nzune or Alt? Perhaps. I just think Drake May. I like Drake May a lot. Actually, I think he's pretty pro ready. But I think they don't pass up a quarterback at this point.
Yeah, this is such an interesting one because the rumors go back and forth, right? And they're just
Yep.
rumors, but there was some chatter that the Patriots did not want to take a quarterback in this class because they're in like a full rebuild, first year head coach and Jared Mayo. And so they're just going to fully rebuild and they don't want to bring in a rookie quarterback into a bad situation. They'd rather build that and then get their quarterback later. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's been kind of the chatter. Well, then it's flipped and like, no, who do they have right on the roster? Bailey Zappi, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, why would you not take a quarterback sitting at 3 when you literally don't have one, or you have one on the roster that is clearly not going to be a starter? And so to me, I don't see how they don't take a quarterback. But for the sake of this, I think if they stay at 3, they're taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
Or they trade back. I cannot see them taking any other position at 3. So I think they take a quarterback. Where, and this is where we'll have to agree, I actually think they would lean JJ McCarthy over Drake May.
Do you? Okay, so we can do that.
No. I'm not.
Well, let's talk about it.
This isn't any. But I just feel like with you scout the player, not the helmet, as they say. Right. But with the success of Tom Brady from Michigan, with all of the praise that Jim Harbaugh, we did an article on LAFB about, is Jim Harbaugh the greatest smokescreen artist in sports, building JJ McCarthy up to drive the Chargers trade value at 5.
Yeah.
If he's still there and teams want to trade up. So for some reason, I don't know, just Robert Kraft, and I know they got new blood over there in the coaching staff, but for some reason I'm like, it kind of feels like with all the hype around Drake May, with all the hype around JJ McCarthy, that he might be the Patriots guy at 3.
Wow. So okay. So let's throw a wrinkle in there. Let's do that. Let's go with your thought. And I know JJ McCarthy is a really polarizing player. The teams that could draft him, we've heard a lot about the Patriots. We've heard a lot about the Vikings. And then we've heard about the Giants too, right? That might be interested in him. So, and you hear those fan bases, they go crazy. They're like, what? And obviously NFL scouts see more in him than the average media member or fan. So let's do that though. That'll be our first wrinkle in our mock here, our first mock. We're going to do more. This will be the first one. So let's go with the Patriots taking McCarthy.
All right.
And see what that does to the rest of the dominoes here. So now you have here's another area where I think if I'm the Cardinals obviously have their quarterback. And they need wide receiver. They have a bunch of needs. They need a center. They need guard, defensive line, cornerback. They're they played really well last year. I mean, especially in that NFC West. And I think that's a credit to their coach Gannon coming over from the Eagles. And here I think they would want Marvin Harrison Jr. But are the Giants on the phone? Are the Vikings on the phone? Now the Vikings have those two first round picks, right?
Sure do.
So I'm thinking now the problem is they move down to 11, and if they go to 11, I don't see any way. At the very least, I don't see Marvin Harrison Jr. being past 9 because I think the Bears would take him.
Yeah,
if he wasn't there.
5, yeah, for sure.
Chargers at 5, or even Tennessee, the Falcons now. I mean,
Yeah.
Look at the weapons they got. Can you imagine adding Marvin Harrison Jr. there? They have other needs. Obviously, they need defensive line really bad. But I look at this and I'm thinking, and so I'm going to go to this trade thing. I'm going to say, okay, so now the Giants, like, so you have the Giants here wanting to move up.
Yeah.
To select, I would imagine a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
to me, the Cardinals should trade back if it goes 1, 2,
Yeah.
3. To 6 is a no-brainer. You move back 2 spots. You most likely miss out still on Marvin Harrison Jr. I think
Yeah.
the Chargers. I personally think if the Chargers want to trade back, because I think Harbaugh wants to take offensive linemen, but if all the quarterbacks are gone in the first 4, then it doesn't make any sense for them to move back because no one's going to want to, or doesn't make sense because no one will want to trade up anyway. The quarterbacks are all gone. So I don't think they'll take a tackle at 5. They'll probably go receiver. So if I'm the Cardinals, though, I'm going, you still got Malik Neighbors there. You still got Ruma Dunze there. However, if the Vikings come to me and offer both their first round picks, which I don't know if that's on here, or we can even simulate that, I'm thinking, okay, if I go back to 11, Roma Dunze still might be there. Marvin Harrison for sure won't be there. Malik Neighbors probably not, but Roma Dunze is a hell of a receiver also.
Yep.
Even if he's gone, I might be able to get Brian Thomas Jr. at 23 for the Vikings second pick, who was the second in command at LSU with Jayden Daniels and with Malik Neighbors. So if I'm the Cardinals, I'm trading back. I think if 3 quarterbacks go first and I'm at 4, I'm trading back regardless. I'm weighing my options on who's giving me more between the Giants and the Vikings.
Yeah. So I think the issue though, to me is it would come down to whether or not, now we've heard JJ McCarthy for the Vikings. Now, if the Vikings are high on Drake May, then yes, I think you go up there. But the Giants, if I'm the Cardinals, Ryan, I only have to wait 2 more picks. Now the Chargers are there. They might take Harrison Jr., even though, like you said, I think the Chargers could trade back as well. But I do think that if I'm the Cardinals, I probably would do, and I'm going to show, you can see it on the screen here. Tell me what you think and overrule me if you agree with this. So if I'm the Giants, I'm giving the Cardinals a 6 in the first round this year. I'm going to give them a 2. I'm guessing this is what it would cost to get into the into the quarterback in the first 4 picks here. They don't allow you to choose 2026, but I would imagine it'd be another, maybe even a first rounder in 26, or we go with the 3 picks. So first, you're swapping first this year, you get a second this year, plus you get your first round pick next year.
Yeah, I think
that seem right.
That seems about right. Yeah.
Okay. And then the
Maybe
Cardinals,
a mid-round pick swap, but we don't need to do that for this sake.
right. And the Cardinals are just giving up the pick, right? They're getting the 3 for 1 there. They're moving down. So let's do that. I'm going to force this trade. Okay. So then there's the Giants. The Giants move up and the Giants take Drake May, right? I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. Okay. So there you go. So now the 4 quarterbacks are gone. First 4 picks. And I'm thinking, Ryan, to me, I have a 70% confidence level that might actually happen. I don't know if it'll be the Giants. Like you said, it could be the Vikings.
Yeah.
But I do think that happens. So now we get to the Chargers. And, obviously, as a purveyor of the Los Angeles Football Network, walk me through what you think happens here. You think at 5, is Marvin Harrison Jr. too good to pass up? Or do they actually trade back?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Chargers are sitting, I think, at the best draft position of this draft for their needs. Obviously they have Justin Herbert, so they don't need a quarterback. But there's so many different scenarios that can play in their favor. You have this scenario. If the Giants jump them and all 4 quarterbacks go first, then the Chargers essentially get the best player in the draft. It's not a quarterback. Whoever they deem that is, whether it's Marvin Harrison Jr., whether it's Malik Neighbors, whoever it is, they ultimately get to decide the best player in the 2024 draft. That's not a quarterback. If, let's say, the Giants are not in love with, which for this case we did, I'm just playing another scenario. If the Giants are not in love, if Drake May is the last quarterback remaining, Giants feel like that's not a huge upgrade over Daniel Jones. So they stay pat. No one else wants to move all the way up to 4. So the Cardinals take Marvin Harrison Jr. Well, then all of a sudden the Chargers have optionality with the Vikings, Broncos, and Raiders to move back to one of those, because those 3 teams, as we've mentioned before, still want a quarterback. So they really are sitting in a great spot of either getting the best player in the draft, not a quarterback, or still having the ability to trade back, load up picks, and get one of the offensive line that I think they'll take. For this case, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there at 5, I wouldn't be able to pass up on him. I know there's a lot of debate of who's actually better, Harrison Jr., Neighbors, or Rome Odunze. Depends kind of what you're looking for in a receiver. They all do certain things. They all do a lot of things really well. They all have a little better skill sets in certain things. To me, after losing Keenan Allen, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the biggest fit there. They drafted Quentin Johnston last year. He can be kind of your go up and getter, but also can be a speed guy, can run with the ball in his hands, but he's not a true possession receiver. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a do-it-all possession guy, basically a Keenan Allen 2.0 in a way, different skill set here and there. But
Yeah.
So I got way long-winded. I apologize as always. But for this case,
it's good analysis.
It's got to be Marvin Harrison Jr. at 5.
Okay, so and we'll go there, but I have an interesting one here too. And what you said about Harrison Jr. absolutely correct. The guy's hands are like it's like a pot of glue, right? I mean, he just catches the ball. Now, like Allen, like you said, Keenan Allen, he doesn't have that tear it off speed, right? But he doesn't need it because his route running, everything else that he does, his route running actually will get better in the NFL. It's good in college, but the matchups he had in college, even in the Big Ten, he just looked like a man among boys a lot of the times. But what about this? Could you see? So there's the Cardinals sitting at 6.
Yep.
If they're okay with Harrison, or if they're okay with Neighbors, if that's where they want to go, because they obviously need offensive line too. And you have Joe Alt sitting there, although they need guard and center. So they could wait. So the Cardinals could even trade down more. They could be entertaining offers, like you said, from other teams. But they could also, if they wanted Marvin Harrison Jr., they could trade back up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You could swap spots. So the Chargers could move down one spot. It's like, hey, whatever it is they want to do. I don't think that'll happen, but it's one of those crazy scenarios that cross my mind. So
have you seen, not to cut you off, but just on that point, their GM, I always pronounce it Monty Awesomeford, I think is how it's pronounced. Did you see that clip from last draft when he was just manning the phones, and like that was when they traded multiple times in the first round last year. So you're not out of the realm of possibility of maybe that does happen.
No, I mean, it could, but we're going to stick with your approach on this one. Cause I know Harbaugh likes to build the lines and the Chargers need help up front as well, but man, you got the quarterback, you need to build that offense around him. And with this kind of guy, I would normally say, don't take a wide receiver that high, but like you said, he is the best player in the draft that is not a quarterback. So the Chargers, they get rich with Marvin Harrison there. Then you get to the Cardinals again.
Mm-hmm.
And so are the Cardinals, they got the need up front. They have the need in the defensive backfield. That can wait later. It's a big cornerback class. So if I'm them at 6, I probably go Neighbors. I mean, you traded down, you got more picks this year and next year. I would do that. Or if you look, you go down. I mean, Jerzon Newton is there from a interior defensive line. You have edge, your boy from UCLA there, Latu. And so I just don't think they dip that low though. I think you look at Malik Neighbors coupled with the offense in Arizona. It's hard to pass them up.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their receiving core right now. Michael Wilson, Chris Moore, and Greg Dortch are their starting three receivers. You can't sit here at 6 with these receivers on the board and not take one of them. You could make the argument of potentially going Brock Bowers. They did just take a pretty high draft pick on a tight end. It was either last year or the year before at Trey McBride at Colorado State. Shout out Colorado State. So I don't think you draft the same position. Now, obviously, Bowers gives you different versatility, and he's kind of a generational tight end. But Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, I don't think you can go wrong with either. Probably lean Neighbors in this scenario with Kyler Murray in what he's able to do outside of the pocket. But even if they decide on Odunze, I don't think that's a reach. So yeah, you got to go receiver here.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. I think they could go Odunze there as well. I think depending on who you like, right? We don't know. I mean, the ranking, like we're showing it here on the screen, the ranking is one thing, but that NFL team, you don't know. Scouts, coaches, they like certain guys.
Yeah. Well, last year, Scott, sorry, I keep cutting in, but
no, it's okay.
It's a great point because last year you look at the Chargers in the first round, and last year it was pretty much consensus, like, top receivers, Zay, at least at the Chargers spot, it was like Zay Flowers or potentially Jordan Addison. That was like the top receivers in the draft for where they were slotted. And the Chargers end up taking Quentin Johnston before both those guys. And then Jordan Addison goes next, and then Zay Flowers goes right after that.
Right.
But the Chargers thought Quentin Johnston, they had higher value. So it wouldn't shock me if the Cardinals maybe are like, oh, we like Adunze better. Or maybe they shock everyone and go Brian Thomas Jr. over. I don't see that happening, but
they could. But I like Neighbors there. We'll go with that. I know we're not getting crazy here or anything like that. So if you're disappointed, I'm sorry. This pick is another interesting one too, because I think Tennessee, they also are in the market for a wide receiver. But with Joe Alt sitting there, you have Brock Bowers there. They don't need a tight end per se. But this could be another spot where Minnesota tries to jump up, and maybe not necessarily for a quarterback, because if you look at the next quarterback down, it's Michael Penix Jr., right? And Michael Penix Jr., what's on the PFF list? I think he's actually behind Bo Nix even, which I don't agree with, but nonetheless, he's way down there at 46. But the talk around Michael Penix Jr., especially with the pro day, even though pro day, I don't know why people get worked up about pro day, because everything they've seen is on tape. He's been to the combine. He's done all that stuff, the Senior Bowl, all that. So here they have their quarterback. They're sticking with Will Levis. They believe in him. He had some good performances last year. So do you get a generational, I believe, offensive tackle in Joe Alt, or do you go wide receiver? I think in this case, if I'm them, I would go with Alt. If he's still there at 7, boy, I mean, again, you got a young quarterback and he's a great player. Then you do have Adunze there. It's a hard decision.
Yeah, real hard. And this is, I think, if the board goes like this is where things might get weird, whether it's through trade or just whether a player gets taken that maybe isn't expected. I like Alt a lot. They do have slated Petit Friere, I think his name is pronounced, who they drafted just, what was it, last year or 2022?
Yeah.
Who's not like a, all pro, but they did use draft capital on him slated there. So maybe they feel good enough about that to not use this whole profile pick. They took, drawing a blank now, Peter Skoronski last year in the first round.
Yep. So
they invest in the offense line there. They signed Lord Kitchenberry this year for center. So they have invested in the offensive line. You look at their receivers actually, and DeAndre Hopkins, they signed Calvin Ridley and they got Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
So they drafted Kyle Phillips, who I like a lot as kind of a slot gadgety, wide receiver 4 option. So they have some talent there too. Honestly, Scott, I don't think they'll do this. So I want you to ultimately, I'm putting it on you, Scott, to ultimately.
Well, throw me we don't have to stick to the book all the time. Tell me what you think. What do you think?
This is Brock Bowers.
Wow. They don't have tight end.
They don't have a generational tight end. Brock Bowers is a generational tight end. He's basically a pseudo receiver in a tight end body that can block also. That could be your next Travis Kelce. In that case, I would go Brock Bowers here.
Okay. So
I want you to make the decision. You're the GM.
I like that call. I was thinking about it because I'm thinking, well, it's not on their needs list, but that doesn't matter because in the NFL, if best player available now, you have a great tackle, you have a great wide receiver there, but to have that tight end and the way tight ends have changed and how they're a much bigger part of the game as receivers, i.e. the Travis Kelce's, those kind of guys, then why not? I mean, why not do it? And Brock Bowers is, if he plays up to the potential we've seen him in college, he could be the next great tight end in the NFL. All right, let's do that one. That's a surprise one. Let's do it. So they go Brock Bowers. Now you got the Falcons. They're looking defensive line, all defense for them, right? Although I still think they could go offense. But if I'm them, I'm looking maybe at Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean. So here's where I think that if I am the Vikings or the Raiders, or the Jets. Now the Jets, I don't think they have much to trade up with, but if I'm the Vikings or Raiders, I could see a trade happening here because if Joe Alt's on the board, both those teams, the Vikings could use it. I know they primarily it's listed here as guard or center, but guess what? If Joe Alt's there, you can move somebody to guard from tackle right now.
You'll figure it out.
Right. So to me, one of those teams could do it. The Vikings, to me, have more capital offered than the Raiders. Now, maybe not future compensation, but if I'm the Vikings, I can jump up here with the Falcons, who are really looking at defense they can get lower in the first round. I'm looking to get those 2 first-round picks, maybe. Now, To get up to 8, would you give up 2 first round picks? Maybe. Or if you're the Vikings, you're giving up one of those. You're giving up pick 11 and you're giving up next year's number 1. You still got another number 1 this year too. So if I'm the Vikings, that's what I would do. So you can overrule me on this one, but I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking, and you can tell me after we get it out here. Where's Minnesota? If I could spell right today. I missed it, didn't I? There it is. Okay. At pick 11. Okay. So Minnesota, they give the 11th pick, and then they give, what do you think? I don't know that, to move up to 8, would you give 2 number 1s? Next year's number 1? I don't think so. They don't have maybe you're 2.
Here's what I would offer if I'm playing strategically. And if you can throw the board back up there.
I'll do that right now.
What I would do.
Oops.
And obviously it's going to, but if no one else is really calling, like maybe the Raiders and Broncos decide we don't need to move up for a tackle. We're definitely not moving up for a quarterback because, Penix or Bo Nix will be here at 12 or 13.
Right.
So if I'm the Vikings, I'm not offering 11. I'm offering 23. And I'm saying, hey, we'll give you 23 and some mid-round picks, whether that be 23 and a second and like a fourth, or a 23 and maybe a second and a third next year, something like that, because I don't think they need to give up to move up, especially because you're not trading for a quarterback. When someone needs a quarterback, which the Vikings do,
yes,
but they're not taking one at 8, the other team has, for lack of better words, like all the negotiating power.
Correct.
Vikings may love Joe Alton. I totally agree with you, Scott, but I don't think they'd be willing to give up 2 first-round picks and 11 to only move up 3 spots for a tackle. As important as a tackle is, it's not a generational quarterback. So
correct.
I would offer 23 and then either a second or a third and another mid-round pick.
And it looks like the Vikings, they have the 2 number 1s this year. They don't have a number 2. Looks like it's a
that's right.
4th, right? 108, I'm thinking, is 4th. Yeah. So they have 2 4th-round picks. So they don't have it. And then next year, they don't have a second either. They just have a 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 2 5ths. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that won't. They need a second. Unless they do 23 in next year's first. That would be the only other option.
So I think with this one, even though he's ranked as the top cornerback in the draft, according to most, including here on PFF, I think they go Quinion Mitchell from Toledo, who tore up the combine and has really risen. So I'm gonna do that as my surprise pick, if you don't mind. What do you think? All right. So that's a cornerback going really early in the top 10. But I mean, Jerzon Newton they could go there, right? Because they need defensive line help too. But I don't know. What do you think? I'm conflicted, my friend, on this one because
Newton. They need corner depth. Those are both great. I like Cooper DeJean a lot.
Yeah.
So either one of those corners, I would take. But you look at they don't have like a true star on the defensive line. Grady Jarrett's probably the closest you could call.
Yeah.
They don't have like a true edge presence, so they'll need to do that eventually. But you look at their secondary. As of right now, they have like 3 corners on the roster, and that's it. They have AJ Terrell, Clark Phillips, who's coming off a rookie campaign, and Natron Brooks. So, why not add the first corner off the board to that room when you're going to need depth regardless?
Yeah, I think and maybe I'm going with my own bias. What do you think? You tell me, DeJean or Mitchell? Which way do they go? Do they go with the higher ranked player, or do they go with Mitchell, who's kind of more the buzzworthy player?
Do it. It's your surprise pick. Do it. Go with Mitchell.
Let's go with Mitchell. So they go Mitchell there, which brings up the Bears, and I don't think there's any question here. The Bears go for Odunze.
That home run, right? You get DJ Moore, Roma Odunze. The only thing is, Scott, before you click it, let me fully pull up their depth chart, because maybe they're too deep at receiver.
They're too deep at receiver.
Let me just make sure here. That would be a home, but they got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and then after that's a drop off. Tyler Scott. Yeah, so they could do it, and they just have a very good 3-man rotation.
Right. And you look at the Bears. So here's another one too. You think of that. So that's a great point. You look at the Bears offensive line, and of course they just made a trade for Ryan Bates, right? Yeah. So for a 5th round pick this year, they traded with the Bills. So they already upgraded at the offensive line. And then they have Tevin Jenkins, they have Braxton Jones. They have a pretty good offensive line. You can always look, you never can be too deep at offensive line. So you look at that, Nate Davis, right? And he struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
And so adding Ryan Bates there was big as an interior guy, but as a tackle, could the Bears keep the Notre Dame guy close to home and go tackle? I don't think so, though. I think the offense, you want to create some excitement there. And as great as Alt is, I just think, since they couldn't get Harrison, to get Adunze there with the
Oof.
young quarterback. Oof,
Yeah. I'm so torn because
I
alt
know.
would be, you pair it. It's kind of like just what's your preference, right? You rookie quarterback. Do you want a star receiver with him
Yeah.
or a star tackle with him?
Right.
Do you want to protect him or give him a weapon?
Yeah.
And oh man, I'm torn. I'm torn on that. That's a toss up. I mean, they've done some good stuff on
Eh,
defense. They got Montez Sweat last year, so you
Yeah.
don't really need to go edge here. They got Tremaine Edmonds at backer. They got Kevin Byard as a free safety acquisition.
Yep.
They re-signed. Everyone thought they wouldn't, but they re-signed Jalen Johnson, one of the best corners in the game.
Yep.
So they have a lot of flexibility here, which I think that the Bears have quietly built together a really good roster and having the number one. I mean, everyone's talked about, right? The best team with the number one overall pick in recent memory after winning 7 games and having a pretty good roster right now moving forward. So it just depends what you think they need more help on. I'm kind of leaning alt just because of adding Keenan Allen. With no Keenan Allen, I'd say not even think twice. Roma Dunze run that thing to the commissioner. But I don't know. Coin flip for me. Because I love a Dunze. And a Dunze with Caleb Williams, I mean, that'd be fun.
It would be fun. And that's the thing. I think it's all, I mean, look, being there, you think, oh, you're at 9, it's an easy pick. It's not an easy pick because you look at the 4 players still there from a ranking perspective, all Adunze, Newton, Dijon, and Latu. Like, you can't go wrong with any of those guys, in my view. Now, they do have need on the defensive line. I just don't see Newton. It's just not, to me, a defensive, even though they're ranked in the top 10 or 12, I think it's going to be too difficult for them to go past a guy like a Dunze with Caleb Williams there. You get the fan base excited, and you get your offense, and you're pretty loaded on offense. Yes, you still need help on defense, but man,
Okay, so here's
I'm
how
leaning
we'll
towards that.
here's how
Okay,
we'll make the decision.
we'll make the decision.
Here's how we'll do it because they traded for Keenan Allen, but
True.
he only has 1 year left on his deal.
Mhm.
So they'll have to re-sign him. So I think it's a safer backup plan to take a Dunze. And if they get priced out of Keenan Allen, if he has another great year,
You let him
have
walk.
Keenan Allen and waiting with a Dunze. If you're able to bring him back, then you have one of the best 3 triage of receivers in football.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a Dunze here.
Okay, there we go. So Dunze goes, much to the chagrin of the Jets, who also need a wide receiver. So you look at that, and for them, I mean, you don't get to another wide receiver till the second round, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Thomas from LSU is good, but he's bottom of the first round guy.
Yeah.
And so you're the Jets. You have Aaron Rodgers. You need a wide receiver. You have lots of needs for the Jets. You need a tackle, right? So guess what? Joe Alt's there. I think they would go there, don't you? I mean, you're not going to address wide receiver. You get your tackle. You could go Newton, or you could go for edge, even though it's not listed here. I think they could still use edge help. Fuaga's a good. I mean, who else? Yeah. So you look at. I mean, you start to get some other players here, but I think Joe Alt would be the best player on the board at that point, the way we've drawn it out. So if I'm the Jets, I'm taking him to protect my aging quarterback.
Yeah, and I think even though they added Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, both
Yeah.
tackles this offseason, I mean, age is a factor there. And obviously, it may be seen as a luxury pick, taking a tackle and you just sign 2 tackles. But I mean, one of those guys goes down, all of a sudden Rodgers may go down the next game. So you almost want to have more insurance on the offensive line, and Joe Alt being the best offensive line in the draft, if you're able to get a 10.
Yeah.
To me, I think, that makes a ton of sense. I think, they have needs, Scott, but I think they also have kind of a BPA situation here where they can just whoever falls to them as the best player in the draft, they can take, because kind of a plug and play situation.
And to me, the wild card here would be, because I like him a lot, is Byron Murphy.
Yes.
Right. So I could see them, because that's a need for them. They don't have that push inside. So Byron Murphy right there Ooh, do I go with my bigger need or do I go with the higher ranked player, right? But I mean, again, different sides of the ball, but I could see them very easily going either way there. Um, but I can't see Joe Alt falling to either. I'm trying to guess here. Who else? The Raiders need offensive line. The Broncos, not so much, although I don't, yeah, I can't imagine. So you start to look at that and you think to yourself, wow, what do they do there?
Yeah.
Let's get crazy. Let's go
Let's get crazy.
Let's get Byron Murphy. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you figure so they added Javon Kinlaw, who I've never been high on from
Yeah.
San Francisco. So I mean, I don't think he's a quality starter. You figure you get Byron Murphy, pair him next to Quinnen Williams. I mean, that is a nasty front
Yeah.
up there in the middle. So
Let's get crazy then.
and you got to remember too, they got a defensive minded head coach. So they
Exactly.
signed Mike Williams. They got some more offensive guys that on the offensive line for Aaron Rodgers. So he's sitting there like, you can't let me not take a defensive animal right here. Like
Exactly.
so, yeah, I
Exactly.
like it. Do it.
Okay, so let's do that, and then let's go to 15, right? Because then we got your team, the Broncos, the team I cover, the Raiders at
Yeah, let's
13.
do
So
it.
we'll just keep going. We're going pretty quickly here. Okay, so we haven't had any more trades yet. So now Minnesota, who couldn't trade up, so they stick in at 11. They still need a quarterback, but they have other needs like tight end. They need help up front on both sides of the ball and defensive backfield. So here, to me, I think this is where Joe Alt will go.
Yes,
You think so?
I think I would agree. Yeah, I mean, Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, our guy Eric from Minnesota Sports Fan would probably know better than us how high they are on both those guys long term. Yeah, it'd be hard to pass up on all. Yeah, neither of those guys are what I'm like, oh, these are our staple tackles. So it's not like you feel bad about replacing them. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
They went. I know they let Danielle Hunter go, but they went heavy at edge, getting Jonathan Greenyard and Blake Cashman in free agency, and Andrew Van Ginkel. So they basically lost one, added three. So I can't see them really going edge here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think Alt probably makes a lot of sense with no
the best player on the board.
Or even a trade back.
Yeah, they could trade back. That's true.
I don't know who would want to move up.
The Raiders, perhaps. Although I'm not moving up 2 picks in the first round. As good as Joe Alt is, I'm not moving up 2 picks and giving away too much when it's 2 picks away from me, even if I'm losing them, right? So, all right, so let's do that. Let's go Minnesota, and we'll see if our good friend at our sister site, Eric, at Minnesota Sports Fans, which if you're a Vikings fan, make sure you go visit. They will take Alt. All right, so now we get to your boys up a mile high. A lot of needs there, right? Quarterback, wide receiver. Of course, they traded Jerry Jeudy. They need a center. They need edge, and they need cornerback. Lots of cornerbacks. We're now getting into the space where you're starting to see those cornerbacks: Dallas Turner, Terrion Arnold. But then you also have a bunch of tackles here too. And then, of course, the 2 top-rated defensive linemen still there as well, with Byron Murphy going a little earlier than PFF had him ranked. But here's an opportunity for the Broncos to look, or do the Broncos, if somebody's willing to go up, I can't imagine anybody's willing to go up. I'm trying to think here. We'll look down. There's nobody quarterback hungry below except for the Vikings, who could trade 23 to move up and take one of the remaining quarterbacks if they really like somebody there, but then they would have probably taken him at 11. So what do you think here for your Broncos?
Yeah, it's, there's been buzz, rumors, whatever you want to call it, that they really are starting to really like a Bo Nix. For me personally, I think this is too rich at 12 taking Bo Nix here, but I don't know if he'll make it all the way into the second round. So, I mean, if he's a guy you feel you can develop under Sean Payton, and then who cares if you got him at 12 or at 38? Like, who really cares at the end of the day? Do I think at this point right now they would do that? I'm still not there yet. So for me, I would lean more a Cooper DeJean. I would lean more even a Newton. I think they have some decent star pieces on the defensive front, but they don't have a lot of depth now with kind of how they shed some cap and did stuff like that. Obviously, they released Justin Simmons. So how do they feel about safety? I think this is a very weak safety class, so they're not going to take a safety here at 12. So that'll be something probably addressed later on. I'm talking a lot because I don't really know what I think they're going to do here. I would lean Cooper DeJean probably. Pat Surtain, in my opinion, is one of the best corners in all of football.
Yeah.
They're pretty weak on the other side in terms of, star power. They got some good production last year out of some guys, but I think, to me, probably adding a Cooper DeJean,
yeah,
they need that other outside corner that can hold up if no one's going to throw Pat Surtain's way just because he's a shutdown guy. The other guys can get peppered all game. So
yeah,
I'd go probably.
And I don't disagree. I think cornerback, this is where we'll start to see some of the cornerbacks fall. As you know, and I did a profile of him on Sportsnaut, and I was so impressed with him when I got to spend some time at the Combine with Terrion Arnold. He might end up going first, but either way, I think you can't go wrong with either one of those guys. And so I like that for the Broncos. To your point, oops,
did you already pick him?
I did. I can go back though.
I was gonna say go Arnold, but yeah, either way, a cornerback will say goes to the Broncos. Arnold or DeJean.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So now we get to the Raiders, and you look at the board, and what you have here is two big needs for the Raiders. Of course, they signed, they've improved the interior of their defense, and they have, of course, on the edge, Max Crosby, and they have oh my gosh, why am I drawing blanks now? Oh my goodness, we're getting on too long. But defensively, the Raiders are in a better place. They're a much better place, especially the second half of the season after Antonio Pierce took over. And so what they need is badly need a tackle. But at 13, do you go with a Troy Fontenot, or do you go with one of the quarterbacks? Now, I still think that even with a tackle there, that if the Raiders, and you were talking about the Broncos in the same position, if you don't take a quarterback at 13, I don't think, unless you're going to trade back in to the first round, or top of the second, I don't see either maybe Bo Nix, maybe available at the top of the second round. I think Michael Penix is going to go between here and 20. If you look at who's down there, who needs a quarterback? Nobody. Wait, the Vikings at 23. So like one of those quarterbacks to me goes at 23. I don't know which one.
Yeah.
And so but see, now I'm a little biased, so you got to help me here, because since I cover the team and I've been saying for months on our Raiders show that quarterback's the biggest need. Yes, you need offensive tackles. Yes, you still need a linebacker. You still need some cornerbacks, but you got to have a quarterback. The point here, though, is Michael Penix Jr., who I think is a step above Bo Nix just a little bit. Is that the guy you would take at 13? You got to help me with this one, because I gravitate towards the quarterback just because I think it's the most important position on the field, obviously.
So if it was me, and I should have mentioned this with the Broncos too, but if it was me, based on, I covered USC, covered UCLA, covered the Pac-12, so I saw a lot of Bo Nix and Michael Penix.
Yeah.
Before the draft process started, when all of a sudden these guys started going way down, like I would have absolutely thought Michael Penix Jr. at 13 is a home run, or even at 12 for the Broncos. Like, if you would have talked to me going into the semifinal of the playoff, I thought Penix Jr. was going to be number 3 quarterback taken, top 5 pick.
A lot of people did.
Caleb was obviously 1.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the draft process starts, and the NFL is not as high on him, and there's the injury history and the age and this and that. But just as far as a thrower, as a leader, as far as running an offense, now the question comes down, and you would know this better than me, how he fits in that Luke Getsy offense. If I would have the pick before, I think Michael Penix would have fit perfectly in Sean Payton's offense. I think he could run that really well. And so you have to start thinking, and a lot of fans I don't want to sound like I'm talking down on fans, but they see all these mock drafts from analysts and stuff, but you have to realize that, the GMs and scouts don't care about media mock drafts. And so if they need a quarterback and they see a guy that, won 24 games in his 2 year at Washington, went to the college football national championship, went through adversity, was called by his coach, one of the greatest leaders he's ever been around, created, not by himself, but created prospects like Roma Dunze, like some of these other guys that are going to get drafted high. That's something you can fall in love with. So for me, if the Broncos don't take him, if I'm the Raiders, you have your security blanket with Gardner Minshew. I'm taking Michael Penix 13 and not thinking twice about it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you there. I have to scroll down. And again, I've also said though that if I'm the Raiders, yes, I could take an offensive lineman and try. See, here's the point though. You're not guaranteed. Try to trade on the back end future compensation to get on the back end to get back into the top 20 in the first round or maybe top 23-ish to try to get Penix. But I just don't think you have Seattle there. Even though it doesn't list it as a need, I still think you could have a young quarterback in Seattle.
Gino's only got 2 years left on his deal anyway. So
He's only got 2 years left on your deal. Even New Orleans, Derek Carr, we know that's not been working out. We'll see if it works out this year. They're in need of a quarterback, and I could see them being at 14, do it as much as they need a tackle too, and they need some defensive line help. I think that you got to take the quarterback here because I don't think he'll be around. I just don't think he'll be around.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll do that, and when I share this with my Raider fan listeners, we'll see what they say. But where am I here? I think I'm. Oh, there he is. Okay, so yeah, Penix Jr. goes to the Raiders. Okay, so now you got the Saints there. The Saints, like I said, quarterback, wide receiver, tackle, defensive line. You look at that Saints defense has been aging, right? Then they've had some defections as well. If I look at the two, I'm just not that big of a fan of Newton. I'm no pro scout, so I'm not saying I'm right. But I'd rather take the kid out of UCLA at this point from an edge perspective, because the Saints need both. They need interior and edge. And I just like his motor, man. And that's not just a West Coast bias on my side. You covered him, if you have to take between Newton and Latau, which way do you go? Latu, excuse me.
Yeah, no, I love Latu. And as a covering sports, I hope he falls to 19 to the Rams. But I could certainly see him going here to 14. And either one, I think, Newton's going to give you something different than Latu. Obviously, Newton's playing more inside, and Latu's a pure edge pass rusher. So they signed Chase Young. I don't think he's a dominant pass rusher at this point. Showed some really good stuff early in his career. And then last year was just a weird year when he got traded to San Francisco and really never claimed all that clout. So I like getting a Latu and bringing him in there. But I think the interior also is a big need when you look at where they got Kalen Saunders, I think, their. So I'd go either way. As just purely not looking at need, purely the player and the upside, I would go Latu.
So do you think though that if they look at the situation so they're obviously not going to get a quarterback, at least in the first round, unless they love Bo Nix. But if not, then to me, you agreed on from a defensive standpoint. If I'm going Latu, but then you have two great tackles in a row there too, Fuaga and Fontenot. Right there, to me, those two guys are appealing too. Derek, you're stuck with Derek Carr for at least 2 more years, right? So do you go there knowing that you have a quarterback who's a statue?
Yeah.
It's a tough choice. I just think that if you look at it from the perspective of that offensive line last year wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. You can always get better. So I favor the defense on this one for the Saints. So
yeah, I would too.
Okay. So we'll go Latu there. All right. So now we're up to 15. Our final pick we're going to do on our show. And thanks for staying with us. We're longer than usual, but we're having fun. So now the Colts, wide receiver, defensive back. Colts have their quarterback in Anthony Richardson, good offensive line. They have pretty good weapons. I mean, from a running back perspective, I forgot what they've done so far. I got to look back and see what their roster looks.
Joe
Flacco as a backup quarterback, which is great for that young kid, I think.
Yeah.
So you look here and to me, Terrion Arnold sticks out, and that's my guy if I'm Baltimore. If I'm Indianapolis, Baltimore.
Yeah.
You think so?
For me, it would be either Terrion Arnold or Brian Thomas, receiver at LSU. I go back and forth just because when you look at Michael Pittman Jr. is fantastic, one of the best receivers. He just got an extension. But then after him, it's Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, DJ Montgomery. And you got a young quarterback you need weapons for. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one because Terrion Arnold, they do need some more, I think, star power in that secondary. But I would lean receiver just because it's yeah, you have that young quarterback that you need weapons to. But Terran Arnold would not be a bad pick at all.
Well, let's see. The number one need they have, I'm looking at the depth chart, definitely wide receiver. I mean, they have one. Defensive back, passable, not great. But there's a lot in the draft. Now there's not a lot of Terrion Arnolds in the draft.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of cornerbacks. So let's go Thomas. Let's do it. To conclude our top 15, because we're not going to do the whole first round. But so there you go. So let me cut this out so that I can do this. So we'll get let me get us back up here. What I will do is I'll take a screenshot of this so we can flash it up. Just got to get this adjusted. Oops. Here we go. There we go. Okay.
Host producer extraordinaire.
We're trying, although I can't get it small enough to fit all 15 on. There we go. Now I got it. Okay. So let me clip it and then we'll bring it in. Appreciate you guys staying with us on this. Interesting. So let me know what you think in the comments, by the way. So I will bring this in. I should be able to share this piece. Let me stop sharing this and I will share this. So yeah, I think, again, we're all guessing, of course. That's part of the fun of mock drafts, I think, for the most part. And nobody knows anything more than anybody else. Even the experts don't quite know exactly what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I think the assumptions we've made here are pretty strong. Let me see here.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, first iteration on the fly. But yeah, it's an exciting time of year, and this is smokescreen season, right? So we'll hear a lot of different things,
correct.
A lot of different rumors and reports, and what's fun, Scott. There you go, looks great, got it up. What's always fun, especially with the first round, is there's always, no matter what, going to be one or two players that no one thought would go that high.
Yes.
So,
yes.
That's what everyone needs to remember. There's always going to be, I think last year, like Jahmyr Gibbs was one of them that the Lions took, like 12 overall, I think.
Yeah.
Great player. I think he has a really bright future, but no one thought he was going to be not only the first running back taken, first running back taken, but that high, top 15. Yeah. So it's going to happen again this year.
Yeah. And I'm looking, so here's the list. I have it full screen here for you guys to see. So of course, the first three quarterbacks, we have a little surprise. We have JJ McCarthy jumping over Drake May. We have the Giants trading up to get Drake May, which I think is really plausible. Mm-hmm. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. heading out to L.A. And with the Chargers, and then Malik Neighbors. So you get all quarterbacks 1 through 4, 2 wide receivers, and then a tight end, and then a cornerback, and then another wide receiver in Adunze, and then your first defensive lineman in Byron Murphy for the Jets, and then your first tackle coming at 11. Now, again, it's a really good offensive line class at the top, just at the top. But that's the only one I have a little bit doubt in my mind on, Ryan, is do I, because I know NFL teams understand how important it is to build in the trenches. Some of these skill positions up here, do they go, because everybody thinks the Titans are getting Joe Alt, but I like your logic there. And I think that's the kind of surprise you could see in that situation. Oh, let me take this off so you guys can see picks 14, 15. There we go. So, and then you have Alt going to Minnesota, Dijon going to Denver, Michael Penix Jr. going to the Raiders, Latu going to Latu, excuse me. I got to keep pronouncing that correctly. The Saints, and then Brian Thomas from LSU going to the Colts. A lot of receivers going. We had a lot of receivers there, but there's a lot of talent.
Yeah.
The
first 15.
Yeah. So there you go. That was fun, man. And we'll do this. We're going to do this again. As we get closer to the draft, we'll do some more mocking and find out where we're at with that. But it'll be fun, man. It's always good. And again, give us your comments. Tell us what you think of this as we roll on. Good stuff.
Always a blast, man. That was good. And we'll see. It'll be fun to look back on April 28th or whatever after the first round and then see how we did for the first iteration.
Yes, we will post this also up on x.com from the Sportsnaut account. You can check that out also from the Not Zone account as well. So you can save receipts and come back and tell us if we were good, crazy, what we were. Hey, we'll see how accurate we were with this first one. But we do know we'll be back next week to talk to you again about NFL. We'll see what else is going on as we roll towards the draft. It's getting to the heat of draft season here coming up in a couple of weeks. So we're excited about that. We'll see if there's any trades beforehand. They can be announced beforehand. So we'll see if that happens like it was last year. But we got a couple more weeks to go. Ryan, man, as always, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Always a pleasure. Thanks so much, producer extraordinaire.
All right. Well, I appreciate that and appreciate all of you out there. Do us a favor. Make sure you like the YouTube page here. You can like the Facebook page too. That's fine. But hit the notifications bell and also hit that thumbs up for us. We would appreciate it. Make sure you check out all the videos we have here and also all the NFL coverage. We got a lot of draft coverage coming up the next few weeks over on LAFB and on sportsnaut.com. So you can visit both sites and check that out and tell us what you think. For everybody here at Sportsnaut, we appreciate you being here in the Not Zone, and we will see you next week.